it was advertised, but I'm going to spend a little bit of time on just planning practice, and session planning. It's not going to cover every single thing you can do in a practice session. And in some ways, this is probably geared towards players just starting out and coaches that might have young teams or might have players that maybe don't have as much experience, and we need to do a little bit more on skill development and build up. If we move into the representative side of coaching, some of the stuff I'm going to show you in this first part will be condensed. You'll be able to cover quite a few of the things in a shortened time frame, which then will allow you to move into some of your more strategic parts of practice, which might be parts of your playbook or situations or specific types of team defenses. So what you're seeing here is last year during lockdown, I presented this to what you're going to see in the first probably, I'm going to say 20, 25 minutes. Hopefully it doesn't take longer than that. I'll be able to just get through it fairly quickly. This was presented to about 80 coaches across Oceania, different countries in our region that may not get access to a lot of sessions or mentoring or information. So I did this one with Annie Lafleur last year, and the feedback was good from that, just due to the content and how it it filled in some gaps that some of the coaches were hoping to fill in. So I'm going to do that. Then along the way, if there are any questions, Tom, who's going to do the moderating, please ask those questions. I'll stop and try and address some of those questions as we go. I'd rather do that than wait for the entire session. We're probably going to go for about an hour, go all the way to the end to then start trying to unpack some of the questions you might have. So ask anything, even if it's has some relevance, but not totally to what we're talking about. If there's something that you want to ask that's in the same theme, please ask those questions.
And just before you go on, DP, yep. So I'm the marketing manager for DBA. I'll be online throughout the night, obviously, and Darren's going to lead you through anything. But if you do have any questions, like Darren said, just shoot it through to me in the chat, and I'll stop Darren as he goes along and find a good spot for him to answer your question. And we'll also be holding questions at the end of the session as well. So if you have something in mind that's not related to the topics Darren's talking about, just shoot through the questions and tell me if you want to ask it afterwards or just wait for that time. So yeah, but now I'll let Darren get to it.
No worries, I'll get into it. Okay, so we're just talking about why the planning is important, preparing the plan, what's in the plan, what kind of things do you want to bring to your practice? How do you organize your drills? How much time to allocate to some of these drills? We'll have a look at an example session plan, maybe do some review of practice, and some of it may be relevant to you, and some of it might be, I'm not going to log, data from practice. That isn't quite my style. That's okay. I'm going to give you a look at a skill matrix that potentially, could relate to players that you have right now. And then we'll just do a summary at the end. Don't worry about the follow-up task. I'm not going to give everybody homework tonight, but this was just part of the seminar that we did last year. Talking about what's your role? Your role is, you're a coach. You want to, come to the floor and you want to be planned, with things that keep the players engaged. The first thing that I do when I get to practice, whether it's under 12s The under-19 national team, the senior team that I coach at Dandenong, is make sure that I greet all of the players all of the time. Sometimes you get a little distracted. You might be talking to somebody else, and one or two might slide by. But I always sort of relate anything that I attend, that if I'm interested in, and I've attended because I want to either improve, learn, or get better at. If I turn up somewhere and whoever it is not interested, whether it doesn't take the time to say hello and greet me, I don't feel as good about being there at that session. I think that's just human nature. You don't have to go overboard, but I think that any kind of coach that's really interested in their players and who they are and how they are, it's also a good way to figure out what kind of state that player is in. Is the player affable, happy? Is the player a little quiet? Is the player distracted in some way, or is the player just ready to go? It's a good time to figure that out, and then our job is to keep that session moving as with a good tempo all the way through the session. I've got a note here that the use of stations is useful to provide variety. Well, that's only going to be if you've got assistant coaches or others that are able to handle taking some parts of drills or some shooting, and it also depends on whether you have a full court or not. A lot of the time, if we're talking about our domestic, potentially you've got a half court. Sometimes, and depending on the day, you might, in representative, you only have a half court, and you need to work well with another coach to try to get some of the the full court type of drills in play. So that's just a glimpse of, hey, I want to get to my session. I want to have a plan. I want to get started. I want to get that thing moving. I want to build it up and get to the end of the session where we've worked on skills. We've worked some drills. We've competed against each other. The players have stayed engaged. And then we get to the end of that thing and we felt like we had a good session and we've moved forward. These are just basic stuff. I'm not going to spend any time on this, but certainly when we're talking about coaching in other countries, some of the coaches were talking about outdoors. Sometimes there's footwear, sometimes there's not. I'm not sure we're in the same space when we go to coach our sessions and games, but I'm assuming that is that they've at least got the appropriate footwear. How long is the practice session? It could be an hour, could be an hour and a half. Sometimes the sessions can go up to 2 hours. For young players, I think that's too long. Anybody that's not from Dandenong, at Dandenong, our not necessarily domestic, but certainly our representative sessions don't go any more than 90 minutes. I think that that's a long enough session to give the players a good basketball workout, keep them engaged, and get out of there having not padded time. The one thing that I this is back to the planning. If you're not planned, if you've got too much time, we as coaches, if we don't have something that we're focused on, we will let drills and things go longer than they should. And that a lot of the time for me is because I've got to go till, I've started at 8, I've got to go till 10. So, all right, I don't know how much content I've got. I've gone through my plan. I've got 40 minutes to go. What are we going to do? We'll play 5-on-5 for 40 minutes. I think that sometimes those longer sessions are difficult for us coaches, even though we would like as much time as possible with the players.
Just before you go on, DP.
This is just
I've got a question here from Nick.
Yes.
Hi, DP. Hey Tom, can you ask DP if the drill was run really well, would you cut it early, or would you keep it going for time you've given the actual drill? So if it's going really well and it's all sharp and the players are used to it, would you cut it short, or would you let it keep going as you had already allotted the time?
Understand. I think I don't. If I've gotten a group of players to execute something well, I think then you're able to shorten the drill as you keep it in your training. You don't dispense with it and say, all right, we now know how to do that skill. But there's, in the introduction phase, you're going to take longer. You're going to have to give players information. You're going to have to give them time to do the drill, even if they're doing it poorly initially, to then be able to get the hang of it, start to execute it well, and then get to a level that you're happy with as a coach. So if that part of the drill took 8 minutes, or you took 8 minutes to explain it and have the players work on it and then have them look like they're doing it well, the next session you can knock time off. And for me, the more condensed you can do your drills, if it now becomes a 4-minute drill because they know the drill down, they know how to execute it, and they know how to do it well, now you are being efficient in what you're doing. You're still reinforcing good fundamentals, but you don't need to spend that time, and you can now fit more into your workout that may be team related. So I think that as you get better at drills, sometimes, and I've seen some do it, if we like what we see in the 3-on-2 drill, then we'll run it for a long time because we like seeing it done well over and over and over again. That's cool. But as you go longer in a drill, the excitement level of the player for the drill will start to reduce. And as they get more and more tired, it then goes past a good drill and turns into a lackluster drill. So I think you've just got to manage it to executing it well, making sure they get a good workout, and making sure the tempo is good. So I think it's a shorten.
Hope that answers your question, Nick. If you have any follow-up, just let me know.
All right. So as I've been speaking, I imagine everybody's had a look at what's on the screen. You just need to figure out what it is, how long to do it, what are you trying to teach, and are you trying to teach the concept, or you're trying to teach it perfectly? I probably refer to all of my sessions, not necessarily later in the season, but certainly earlier in the season, as organized chaos. Because there's no way, especially with young players, that you can introduce something and make it perfect in a short amount of time. So it's introduce, let the players try it, see, watch for improvements in it, and then cut it off and get ready to build on it for next time. Normally, and this is it's not set in stone, but if you're introducing something that you want the players to learn to hopefully bring it into a game, you're probably dealing with a 4 to 6 week phase of the introduction, the practice. Hey, they're doing it really well at training. They're not doing it well in the game. They're doing it better in the game. They're doing it well in the game. That takes a good 4 to 6 weeks before you get the effect of what you are hoping for. Teaching points, make sure that they encompass all of your players. It's hard sometimes if you've got a really good player, super skilled, some other good skilled guys, girls. Then there's some ones that are having a bit of a challenge. And then you've got the ones who are the projects. And, it might be a tall player that you're dragging along and trying to teach as much as you can. And they may be, drowning in some of the stuff that the the more experienced players are used to. Try to make it so that all players are encompassed in your teaching points, because that helps you to keep everyone engaged. That's back to the engaged. If you're only talking to the top 2 or 3 players and that's how you're teaching and coaching, you're not catering for the other 7. If you're only talking to the bottom, arguably the bottom 3, then the 7 who are probably more experienced are going to be a little bit disengaged by it. So it's not the easiest thing to do, but that should be your approach. So we've got a warm-up, some individual skills, some team tactics. Team tactics sounds old school, doesn't it? Tactics. But, what are you trying to do at both ends of the floor? And then the most important part of it, I think, is game-like activities, making things competitive, have a scoring system that is, not necessarily just basket scoring, but could be deflections of passes. If you're thinking defensively, it could be, the rebounding part of the game. If defensive groups can't defensive rebound, they keep letting the offense get the rebounds. You try and figure out what your scoring is that will promote the reason for you doing these drills. So it doesn't make sense to me that if you're really harping on the defense, that you'll score the baskets as how to win the game. So if it's a defensive drill, stops should be the method of winning that game. So that's all I'm getting at, is make sure however you're scoring it, it makes sense to what the intent of the game is. And make sure you let them have a drink now and then. Some of this is, it's over and over, organizing your activities. The one thing that I think is super important is waiting until players are ready to listen. A lot of times, I've seen it where players are either looking on another court because there's some action over there, and their court, your court, doesn't have any action at the moment. You've stopped, maybe stopped too long, talked too long. Sometimes they're ready to listen, but they're not ready to listen for 5 minutes. I know I'm not. I like to, you guys hopefully are for this seminar at least anyway. But when you're thinking, all right, I'm waiting to hear what the next drill is. I'm waiting to hear how do I win the drill? How do I win by scoring? Is it defense? Is it offense? And then how long is this drill likely to be? All of the players are ready to listen, then start. The walk and talk aspect of coaching is really difficult. I think it's difficult, and it takes a long time to get it right, whereby you are talking as they're moving, but they're still listening, so that when you begin, or if you try and continue your drill, you're still going to get the outcomes or the type of play that you're looking for. For me, I'm always ready to give them how this drill will be executed to win, because there's nothing worse than starting a drill and you are hoping that one team plays better than the other, wins the drill, wins the game, and they're not sure how to win. So I think taking them to how to win is probably after you kind of describe the drill. Then tell them how to win, and then let them play for a bit. If that information doesn't result in what you're looking for, then you need to stop, and then you need to reestablish what it is, how to do it, and then try to win. If it goes 2 times and you haven't got the result you're looking for, you need to park that, take it offline, as you say when you're in business, take it offline, and then go back to what was I thinking, what was I trying to teach, how did I describe it? And then what did they do? Because sometimes it's you that didn't do a good job. Right? And I'm not saying all of you out there, of course, you always do a good job, right? But that's for me. My evaluation of a drill, a play, a defense, if I start and talk and we try to get it done and it doesn't look anything like it, you don't keep going. You don't keep going because that'll just do your head in and it'll do your players' heads in. So you just leave that to the side and go again next time. This is back to the question that Nick had. New drill, 5 or 10 minutes. Introduce it, do some corrections, but don't expect it to be perfect. Just see what it looks like first time up. I think there's, anybody that I've coached with, many times after something is introduced and we do the session or do the drill, a lot of my reaction is, that's pretty good for first time up. It's not going to be perfect, but you see enough in it and you see enough in how the players have completed what you've asked to know, yeah, we'll keep going with that one. This one, the warm up and warm down can be done off court. It just depends. If you're really challenged for time, you can encourage players to do that. If you feel like you've got enough time to get your session in, doing a warm up and a cool down, warm down can certainly be part of your session. Sometimes we don't give the players enough time to have repetitions. We'll have 2 players out to demonstrate. We'll have 4 players out to demonstrate. And then we'll say, yeah, here's what it is. We'll describe it. And then we'll, get those 4 to demo, those 2 to demo. And then we'll stop it. We'll give them more information, same 4, same 2, demo. And then we'll say, all right, off you go. And then you'll look at your time and go, oh, I wasted half my time talking. And so the players don't necessarily get enough of a chance to do any repetitions. And then you've moved on to the next thing. So we've got to just make sure that whatever we do talk-wise, we've got to have more time for the players to try the drill. And that's a little bit of that walk and talk. That's my point at the bottom. We're trying so hard to give information that we don't have them doing anything. So I would rather a little less on the communication side to get them into it and let them go, to have that organized chaos rather than go too far with the information and whatever I've said in the first minute has probably been forgotten. So let them go, do it quick, challenge them, put them into something, see what it looks like, and then you can really start to gauge how much your players can take on.
Before you go on,
right,
DP,
so this is...
Sorry, DP, I've got another question for you from Nick. What does your training warm-up look like?
Nick again?
Yeah, Nick again.
What does a training warm-up look like?
Your one, yeah.
Is that what his question was?
Yeah.
What does a warm-up look like?
What does your...
Essentially, in this context, the individual skills are part of the warm-up. The individual competitive is kind of part of the warm-up. So you've got a ball handling, few minutes to get your players touching the ball and getting used to putting some pressure on themselves to perform some skills. The individual competitive as a dribble knockout doesn't require any warm-up. It's basically an opportunity for the players to be competitive and challenge each other to keep their dribble while they're trying to knock the ball out of the key and win a game straight away. So part of the warm-up is some skills, but also part of this warm-up, if you look at the dribble knockout piece to it, is that we're being competitive straight away. You think about how they turn up to play a game. There's a couple of minutes of warm-up and then they're playing. So for me, if we can introduce something competitive straight away, that's kind of like how they're going to turn up and play on the weekend. So little drink and stretch, hopefully they've expended some energy. And then we're talking about some instruction, slide, run and slide, full court defense. It can be a half court. Get them thinking about, how do I move my feet? The keys to playing the game of basketball are, can I handle it? Can I dribble it? And then can I defend? If I can defend better than my opponent can dribble it and handle it, I get an advantage. So the individual defense and then the individual competitive are now starting to engage. And the good part about under 12s and under 14 basketball now is that there aren't any zones. So there's only one way to play defense outside of trapping is I need the ball and I'm going to have somebody on me who's going to pressure me. So we'll talk about trying to improve their individual defense and then get them to play competitively. Just for position to start, don't steal the ball, maintain your gap, stay in front, and then you can go competitive after that. So warm up, competitive. Instruction, competitive. Little drink. They may be tired after going at each other for a little bit. The next part of it is, all right, how am I gonna score? And they've just done the dribbling piece. Now let's try to put something in where it's a pass and cut. So first thing is they'll work on their passing. They'll learn some cutting techniques, and then they'll learn to receive and finish. And it's just a small drill, just to get them, to understand that, a little bit of instruction. Then for this next piece, is probably, the big chunk of this particular session anyway, is to run a 3-on-2 in a full court. Most of the game, not most of the game, a large percentage of play is not 5-on-5 in the game. A great majority of the game is broken play. It's either 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, 5-on-4, and getting your players to understand how to play with an advantage is the key to scoring quickly and getting good shots. Most times for young teams, I'm not talking about really well drilled young teams, but most times for young teams, their best opportunity to score is when they have an advantage. So let's go in the 3-on-2 and see if we can find a shot and play fast before the defense gets back. Once you've had that, I put 12 minutes there. That'll get them going if they're getting up and down. Another drink, and then do maybe a skill individual competitive to finish. 60 minutes. You've incorporated some skills in the warm-up, some competitive stuff, some defensive instruction, some competitive in the one-on-one. You did some individual offense where they start to figure out how to catch, finish. Then you get some broken play stuff, play with an advantage, and then finish off with, maybe I've got 1 minute shooting with a grand final. The mic and drill is to work on their skills right near the basket. So that's just the dribble knockout piece. Everybody in the key, the last two in the little semicircle to finish. Mic and drill is a right to left, shooting layups. Back in the 40s and 50s, it's been a while since George Mikan did that drill, but it's still lasting through the ages. Your run, slide, run is technique, right? Slide first, then take off in a run to catch a dribbler that's gotten past you, and re-engage with some slides. Then there's a diagram for that as competitive. You got a little pass and cut, pass to the wing, use a defender or a chair, fake to the middle, come back and use a front cut to go catch and finish the layup. A little introduction to the 3-on-2. You'll notice in this one, I've got the 4 and 5 sitting in defense down the other end of the court. That's okay for the introduction. If you're a little more advanced than that, I like to have them run in at the halfway to make it more of a game-like competitive drill. And as an example, if you put your information and your plan together with your diagrams, it kind of looks like, that plan on the right-hand side. Now, reviewing practice. Here's just some examples of how to get a little bit of a gauge on, how your players are going, what kind of skills they have. If you wanted to, you could keep some of this information so that, if for the individual skill component, you can end up making it a bit of fun to say, all right, here are your players and how many body reps did you get in a minute, and start to record that. Record the dribbling, who won the dribble knockout, how many layups, were made in the Mikan drill. Even from a team point of view, on your 3-on-2, we had 30 shots. We made 10, we missed 14, and we turned 6 over. If you keep some of this, you don't have to, but if you keep some of that information, potentially you can, by way of that, you can tell if your team's improving, if your players are improving. It's just an easy way to keep a little bit of data on your players. Now, the skill matrix piece, I'll let you just read. We've got some movements, we've got some dribbling. There's an introduction, age, reinforce the drill type of age levels. And then, I don't know about mastering, because we say master, but I think, that's relative to the age level, because I think as you get older, some of the reinforcement, depending on the level you're playing in, you can tend to drop back into that practice phase. But just gives an idea of, all right, well, if I'm going to expect something of my players, what do I need? What do I expect from them, and when should I expect them to be good at a particular drill? At the end of the day, we're all different. We all have to coach to our personality. We have to be who we are. Some of us have a little bit more, lightheartedness to how we coach. Some of us are quite serious in how we coach, not too serious that you eliminate all the fun, but we've got to be who we are. But the one thing we've got to do is let the players make mistakes. That's the only way that we're able to help them. If we have a style where our reaction to an error or something that goes wrong is negative enough that the player stops trying the drill, won't do the drill, won't try to drive, won't try to shoot, stays completely conservative within themselves, then we're not coaching the right way. We have to, if we can, try and have as little reaction as possible to negative things that go on the court. I think we're all the same type of people. If I do something and I can see a negative response, I'm either going to try and do better at what I do, or I'm going to eliminate it. I'm going to say, you know what, I don't think I'll do that anymore based on the response that I got. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to be effective. We've got to keep it simple, and we've got to let the players try and play a style that we're looking for. And the style, you've got to be positive. Certainly, there's room for instruction, and we need to make sure that we eliminate some things that we don't need to see. But if you want to play fast, and the players are trying to play fast and they're making mistakes, you got to live with that. You got to hang with it for a while. Try and eliminate as many errors as possible, but knowing that you're a fast team and play fast, you're going to get those errors. Make sure, however you want to play, is exactly how you are coaching it. If you don't want any errors, you better slow them down. And they need to understand that. There may be some push and pull, of course. And players will want to hey, I want to get down there, I want to shoot it. We've got to try to manage that as best we can. So the summary is, know your players, consider how you want to play, ensure there are opportunities to learn and compete. Players learn more in those small games, whatever the game is. Challenge the players. I always try and even the playing field with rules. If I know I've got a group that is better at a game than another group, you just change the rules a little for them. They'll feel like initially that all you're doing is being mean, but do it in the right way. And I think it just provides more challenge for players. And they like proving you wrong. If you give them more challenges and they overcome those, they definitely enjoy letting you know about it. So we won't do the follow-up. I won't send you out with any homework, but this is just what the crew got. Practice template. You can use anything you like. You don't have to have it set up like this at all. So long as you have a start, you manage your time, you've got some teaching points, you may have some diagrams, but try to stick to your plan as much as possible. There are many plans that I've written over the journey that were just too full. There was too much in them for me to deliver it in the time frame. So I think sometimes it's better to have a few less things, or a few things, and then a couple of options that if you get through some stuff really quickly, you know what to add. So many times early, when I was a much younger man, I would have a chock full, tight timeline, heavy content type of session, and I'd get 40% done. So sometimes I feel like, I just really can't coach this game at all. But then I had to just strip it back, be a bit more measured and not expect myself to do the impossible. So that's all I got for that. Is there any questions on preparing your session?
Feel free to take yourself off mute, guys, if you have any questions for DP.
I had a quick question. Do you ever tell your players ahead of time that this week this is what we're going to be doing? So prepare yourself for that, or parents?
Yeah, I think so. I think that sometimes that's a good one. Post a game. You might have played a game and a team may have pressured you up the floor and you turned the ball over a lot. You didn't really have a good plan in your press break. So it's a good one to say, hey, we didn't do that well today on that. You know what? We're going to work on it this week. Hey, we didn't rebound that well. Hey, we're going to work on it this week. Because it also shows players and parents that you're actually coaching them. You did watch the game. You did recognize some of the difficulties that may have been out there. The one thing that comes back to me as a coaching director is, hey, this team just, pressed us and beat us by 40, but we worked on half-court offense all during the week, the next week. So sometimes you've got to talk about what happened in the game, introduce it, or suggest, yep, this is what we're going to be doing next in the week coming. It's a good plan.
Next question, Chris, you want to ask something at all? Yeah. I've got one more for you, DP, from Pat. Can you recommend any session planning resources?
Well, look, I can. I mean, there's internet. There's a Breakthrough Basketball is a resource online that I've pointed a lot of the junior coaches towards. It's got drills, it's got some footage, it's got some step-by-step ways to put session plans together. But I think there's so much online that you can get. Now you don't have to adopt everything that you go and read, but I think that when you talk about session planning, it's a little bit of how do you keep the players engaged, and how do you keep focused on what competition you're playing in, to have whatever you do at training help them perform, in that league or in that competition. So some of it is, hey, why don't I go and see how, somebody else has done it. But I think once you figure out what the content you need in it, it's just about, think about the game, try and align what you do at training to the game, and I think you won't be far off.
Any other questions, anyone?
Yeah, thanks, DP, for this opportunity. It's great to listen along. I'm coaching an under-12 sort of E-grade sort of side and trying to work on just teamwork and togetherness, and so all the kids can get their hands on the ball.
Yeah.
So I guess I've got a two-part question. One is for that grade, so 3 sort of key skills that I should be teaching all the kids.
Yep.
And then the other thing is shooting technique. Kids come in, I guess, as you know, at that age, they all want to shoot threes and they've got the most horrid techniques to try and shoot it that far.
Yep.
At what point do you break everyone's shooting down to the fundamentals, and when do you let them, I guess, if they've got a technique that works from a relative, close range, when do you just go with it and say, right, well, that's your technique and it works?
You are going to, right, so let's go to the technique part first. In games, they're going to shoot how they shoot because they need to do it fast. It's the way they've grown up shooting. And they're just going to do the best they can. When you bring it back to the practice floor, for young players, young teams, and I do it with all of them. I even do it with the under 14, 16s. Is just put them in one line in front of the basket, and the first shot is right in front of the basket. It's one-handed, and they've got to shoot it and get a swish with one hand, just their shooting hand. And hey, we can move back when we've made 5 as a group swishes. Well, that takes a while. Now, you don't want it to be the entire 60 minutes that you're waiting to get this 5. But the one thing is, they start to get some strength, some touch, and they realize how high that thing is, and they've got to get it up high to drop it in. You keep using that as part of your warm-up. They're the skills. If it's the shooting part that you're most worried about, use the shooting every time, and they'll get better at it, and they'll start to move out. Obviously, once they move out to the free throw line, let them have both hands. It's still not going to be perfect technique, but you just talk about, hey, hang on a second, you just used one hand. Now let's put the other hand, just next to it on the ball. Under 12 girls, under 12 players, it's going to take some time, but they will catch on relatively quickly to that. The young players do. So that's your shooting part. The one thing about trying to get young players to, one, handle some pressure, make a pass where it's not stolen. I put them 1 against 2, right? So this is I talked a little bit about the advantage part, and it's easier to score if you've got an advantage. When you're trying to get them to handle pressure, the game it's 1 on 2, and the 1 has got to try to score on the 2. If 1 scores on the 2, 2 get the penalty. If 2, and I do it in the full court mostly, if the 1 can't get it over the halfway line on the dribble and the 2 win, the 1 gets a penalty. So all of a sudden I'm not just doing this for fun. I've got to dribble this over the halfway line to avoid my push-ups or whatever, I don't know, jumping jacks. I don't know what you do for under 12 girls. I think push-ups, 2 push-ups might be okay. But if they get to the end and score on the 2, well, the 2 get the push-ups. If the 2 foul the 1, they get the push-ups. So you're starting to get them to figure out, I need to be able to keep the ball for a little bit under pressure. Now, and they have a laugh. They enjoy giving each other push-ups. That's how that whole thing works. But then you go 2 against 3. So then there's a trapping 2, and then there's a passing option that might be defended also, and they've got to try to figure that out. Takes a while, but then you go 3 against 4, 4 against 5. So trying to get everyone a touch, they've got to figure out, hang on a second, I got to move. The one girl or one player can't just dribble it up every time, because now there's a trap and there needs to be a pass. So it does promote, how do I get out of trouble? How do I pass when I feel like I'm under pressure? I got to catch it when I'm under pressure. So those things will look awful. Absolutely. You will think this is the worst idea that you've ever heard when you first put it to the floor. But as you go, you'll see the improvement. And then when you go to the floor, you're not going to get double teams, although, hang on a second, under 12 girls.
Oh, it's boys, under 12 boys.
Under 12 boys chasing the basketball. It's like a pack of bees. So yeah, there will be a lot of scrapping. So it's just it's your way of helping them see defenders, see where my buddies are, and then get passes out before they get swamped. And as soon as you figure that part out and you can get it down the floor and score, the swarm backs off a little bit, and then you can, you feel like you can do a few more things. But I think putting them under more pressure than they might see in the game is the way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Sorry, I thought you said girls, man. My apologies.
No, that's all right.
I thought, anyway. Is anybody else got anything? Any questions?
DP, I'll throw one at you.
Yeah.
You mentioned scoring systems when you were doing game-like drills at training. Do you have any favorite scoring rules that you put in regularly with your team, whether that's your NBL 1 or your under 12s?
The scoring systems are purely, I tried to share something else, but this is my technology coming back to bite. I'm stuffing around trying to say, all right, have a look at this thing. Yeah, it didn't work. The scoring systems should be, you do shooting. You can do ones, count in ones, or you can go count for whatever the score is. It's a 2-point shot. Great. They're worth 2. The part to promote offensive rebounding is to shoot. And then if you can rebound the ball without it hitting the floor, then you can get a putback worth 1. So depends how you want to build up your shooting sessions. But for me, yep, they get really comfortable about shooting. Yeah, I got it in 1. Yeah, I got it in 1. And now all of a sudden there's a chance to score more if I go and chase my rebounds. It definitely helps with the habit of shooting properly, landing, chasing, rebounding, and then finishing to get that extra point. So if you want that, an extra in your shooting piece, I would go for that. I do under 12 boys at the moment as well. So part of stopping them yo-yoing the dribble to death is, here you go. Now the drill is you have to get 20 passes. 20 passes is the win. However, if you're able to pass, catch, lay up, and score, it's worth 5. So you get your base scoring done by having successful passes passed and caught. If there's a deflection, if the person who's supposed to catch the ball drops it, you lose possession and you go to the other team. So then you've swung your scoring system into successful passes, so keeping the ball without losing possession. You've promoted how to cut, how to get yourself open, and then in the last piece, when they finally figure out that there's so much pressure on the pass that if they go backdoor and they get a a lob or a pass over the top and they go in and they score 5, they realize, gee, that was easier than getting 5 contested passes. So the scoring piece should represent, and give the advantage to how you want the game to be played. So they're the ways to do it. If it's, hey, our defense isn't very good. All right, well, you need to stop, 3 times in a row to get out. Sometimes that's a challenge for young players to get that done. It's a challenge for older players at times. But all of a sudden, you've put an emphasis on a part of the game, make that the scoring.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And there you go. There you go. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
I don't know. It's just, DP, do you always run your drills both left and right?
Absolutely, yeah. The scoring system, if you're doing left-hand layups, you can only score if you do a left-hand layup. If you shoot it right-handed, hey, good work. But it didn't count. So players tend to then, if they want to contribute to the end score, if it's it's a group score and it's we need to make 11 layups, if they want to contribute to the group score, they've got to do the drill properly and shoot it on that hand. The nature of passing the ball, dribbling right and throwing off the dribble is a good thing, but it's even better if you can do it on the other side. So everything that we do, if you practice right-handed passing, you better pass left-handed as well. Maybe they aren't as skilled on the non-preferred side, but every time you get somebody to do something, I mean, let's face it, if you break your right wrist and you can only eat with your left hand, after 6 weeks, you get pretty good at that. It's the only reason you get good at it is you do it. So definitely promote both ways.
I've got another one for you on offline here, DP. We've got one from Matt Devine. He said, any defensive drill recommendations for under 16 boys? I think he's saying his team likes to play fast, but they sometimes get beat on defense.
They always get beat on.
Sorry, they always get beat.
Last part of that question.
They always get beat on defense.
Okay, so they like running fast down the floor in offense, but not so much in defense. I get it. Well, I mean, a lot of the ways to get the attention of teams that have slow reaction times to get back, and most of it is it's the reaction of when the ball is lost, when the ball's turned over, or when the opposition get the ball, is to not let them shoot it at all. Go back into my dark old days of in the National League, and my least favorite drill, but the one that was most effective was a Brian Gorgian special where you'd have a whistle and you're playing and you're running normal offense, you're doing whatever you need to do, and the whistle goes, whoever has the ball has to drop it and everybody has to match up and get back on defense. I hated that drill. It was something that I wanted to get done as quickly as possible, and the only way to get it done was to quickly switch from offense to defense, pick up your man, and stop. So that's one way to get them to understand that you've got to play that other way. The other part to under 16 defenses, and it's defense. Know that. People talk about it a lot, is playing switching defenses. They're really effective. Switching defense is really effective if your talls can gap and keep the smaller guards from penetrating to the basket. Maybe not to the keyway, that's okay, but not a straight beat to the basket. So if your bigs can stay in front and use wingspan to annoy the smaller guard, it's a really good defense. If you're small, can switch onto a big and not get caught behind and can sit in front and make sure that the pass, if it goes to the big, is a lob, then you potentially have a very good chance of playing a switching defense. The only other part to switching defense is that it makes one player play on one player, and you can sometimes forget about your help side. So if you play a switching defense, you've got to have a plan to trap the post to help a small player out, which means that your weak side of the defense needs to know where the ball is. And then you also have to have good help at the front of the defense if the big is on a guard. If you can do those two scenarios, you can switch and play defense on anybody, but certainly the one where getting back on defense, just use the whistle. The players will hate it, but they'll certainly pay attention.
Another one here for your DP. I coach. This is from Scott K. I coach under 8s. They're 5 to 6 year olds. Is there any skills they should focus on more than others at the young age?
Catching. The one for the youngsters is they can get it and they can dribble it. The one thing that they find difficult is catching passes. Probably because the delivery of the pass isn't flash as well. It's when you're young, normally if a player, one of those little guys, gets in trouble, it's going to be a pass straight up in the air, and it's a difficult one to catch. But I think strength of the hands. So with young players, they'll tend to, if there's a ball that you can get, they'll tend to hit at it with one hand and try to just run it into a dribble. When the best way to go about it is to actually go and secure it with two hands. If catch the ball, you get a running down the floor pass, it hits the floor a couple of times. Players will just try to pad at it and try to get it onto the dribble so they can score. If you can promote, no, I've got to catch it, I've got to secure it, I've got to control it, then I can start dribbling. That is under 9 basketball, under 8 basketball 101. You'll get far more good attempts at the basket, far more good dribbles, far more good passes. But then again, if I remember back to under 8s, that's definitely a B swarm. So, it's also recognize who's on my team and can I get it out of a triple team, because everybody's going for the ball at about that age.
I've got another one, DP, from Jody Kennedy. When you have a team that is playing in a division out of the league, how do you keep the confidence up if they're losing by 40 to 60 every week? Obviously, that can lead to a bit of downness from the players. So how can you keep their confidence up?
That's the challenge. I mean, we're talking about that, that classic, VJBL monster grading matrix, and sometimes teams do really well to win some games early on and tip themselves up into a tough division, when sometimes, I mean, it sounds crazy, sometimes it'd be better if they didn't win that last game and they stayed in a division that they were highly competitive in. But when you get up and you're in a tough spot and you're under the pump every week, it's one of those build some small wins in your game if you can, and you may not be in a position to win many games, but I think some of it comes back to your strategy in dealing with pressure. Because there's when teams are running the scores up that big, it's because they're in the backcourt. They've got to press, and they're preying on perhaps your team's inability to get it out of pressure. So some of it is, and it sounds crazy, but I'm happy to chat offline to help a little bit in this way and try and help you through that. But my key things for beating pressure, because that's where teams run up the big score lines, is the first catch into the court I call a non-dribbling catch. So if you've got somebody who's tall that is kind of mobile, if you can get somebody who's got a little bit of length to them to catch it, where they can get it out of that first double team, that's the first thing that I would do. First catch into floor, it's always a trap. So don't put your best dribbler in the trap. Put somebody tall who can get it out of the trap. So the next pass out better be to either of your two best dribblers. So for me, I get it into the floor, I throw it in with my best ball handler. So the best ball handler throws it, and there's a trap, and the best ball handler runs right next to the trap. What's the hardest thing for a young player to do when under pressure? Is to throw it at distance. So I get the guard to run right behind the trap so they can maybe a little bounce pass or a little just drop over the top. You can get it back to your best ball handler, you at least guarantee yourself of getting it over the halfway line most of the time. So that's the thing. Try to build little parts of the game where I get it over the halfway line, you know, and then this can be a measure. Hey, we didn't get out of the backcourt 20 times in that game. So now our job is to get it out of the, you know, try to limit that. Now we only didn't get it out of the backcourt 9 times, 7 times, 4 times. They're things that you can bring back to your team to let them know that they're getting better, that they're improving where it may not be felt on the scoreline. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, is try to build up some things that can happen in the game where you can see an improvement in. Like I said, I'm happy to, you know, my email is attached to all this. If you want to send me an email, I'm happy to give you a bit more information on that.
Thanks, DP. Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, if anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, DP, for all the time you've put in tonight and obviously preparing everything for everyone. As DP mentioned, he's happy to answer questions offline. So if anyone's got any questions, just send. You've all got the email that I sent out. You can shoot me an email and I'll forward that on to DP for you, or you can find DP's email. I think it should be there somewhere, dpeagles18@gmail.com. So DP's there for you. But yeah, if anyone does have any questions they want to take offline, just shoot something through to me and we'll follow it up.
It's a pleasure. Thank you all for getting out on, well, not really getting out on a Monday night, getting online on a Monday night. It's good to see people's faces. You know, it's going to be a challenge for us all in the coming weeks, just in general. So good luck to everybody. Stay safe. And I hope to see you around the courts really soon.